Closet, a Todd Mills Mystery. Book 1. Author R.D. Zimmerman. Publisher Scribble Pub. Minneapolis, Minnesota. Narrator Eric Aust. Chapter 9. When did you first do it? Todd Mills climbed in and pulled shut the passenger door of the tourist sedan. Glancing out the windshield, he squinted at the bright sunshine. Had he heard Detective Rawlings correctly? No, that couldn't be what he was asking. Todd, who hadn't been released more than 5 minutes ago, who was exhausted and dazed, had to be imagining it. What'd you say? Todd asked. When was the first time? Rawlings started up the car, glancing over with a sly grin. With another guy. What? As they pulled away from the looming city hall, Todd shook his head. He couldn't believe this, any of it. Wasn't the body search last night humiliating enough? Or the news reports? Todd said, I'm only doing this because my lawyer said I had to. Correction, you're only doing this because of a court order. Rawlings patted the sexual assault kit next to him and added, Don't worry, pal. It's painless and it won't take long. Kind of a formality. We're not looking for anything really. It's just stuff for the record. How nice. Don't worry. I'll have you over at your lawyer's in 45 minutes. Where's she taking you to lunch? I don't know. I don't care. Todd thought for a second, then asked, What do they want this stuff for? Where's it go? What record? Oh, no big deal. The results just go to the crime lab. It's not public. He slumped in his seat. I don't care what people know about me anymore. Not that I have a choice, but I really don't care. I'm just too tired. He'd finally seen today's paper, and even he had been surprised at how open and vulnerable he appeared in the photo. You worried about the hospital? No. Well, yeah. A bit. I just don't want to have to talk to anyone. Rawlings quickly said, Don't worry. I know a back entrance. We'll go in that way. We'll keep it quiet. No one will see you. As they passed around a corner, Todd looked up at the towering red granite walls of the building he'd just exited. He saw a series of smaller windows. Was that where he'd been last night? Way up there in a cell? Me? Began Rawlings, driving through the light traffic. I really wasn't a real early bloomer, if you know what I mean. I was a virgin until I was 20. And that first time was the absolute best. I was really in love, too. I was the star hitter on the college baseball team. The girls were all over me, and I could have had anyone. Almost any one of those chicks would have loved me like there was no tomorrow. Instead, I fall for someone who dumps me, and almost 20 years later, I'm still not over it. Man, imagine falling in. Todd eyed him suspiciously and interrupted, asking, Why the hell are you telling me this? You think I care? Maybe not, but I think you're wound up about as tight as they come. And trust me, man, everyone's going to be asking about your sex life. You're in the hot seat, buddy, and you just got to relax a bit. Do you have anyone you can talk to? Any other gay friends? Well, he'd almost mentioned Janice, but he stopped short, unsure just what was okay to divulge. No, not really. I'd recommend you find some fast. You've just come exploding out of the closet, and it's no time to be alone. Even I know that. But the pressure's not going to let up on you for weeks, maybe months. You're going to need some good support. So you're a therapist, and here I thought that you were just a detective. Please. My duties are endless. I went into this field just so people could call me a real dick. Rawlings laughed, which reminds me. Have you heard what they call a lesbian detective? Todd wasn't sure he wanted to know. In any case, why the hell was Rawlings talking about this? He said, No. A duck dick. Todd shook his head and stared out the window as they headed over to Washington Avenue, and then headed east. The Mississippi River and the St. Anthony Falls lay to the left, just beyond a series of grain mills. Straight ahead, a mile at most, was the west bank of the University of Minnesota. It all seemed so simple. For the first time, Todd saw clearly how he'd taken so many false steps in life, and how suddenly everything had caught up with him. You're one of those guys who changed to being straight, aren't you? If it were possible. You'd turn hetero, wouldn't you? asked Rawlings. I'm right, aren't I? At one point, that's all I wanted, yeah. So, I thought, Todd, am I really that uptight? That transparent? I even got married. Yeah, you mentioned that last night. Were you happy? She was very pretty, very nice. I was nice. We were nice together. Besides the fact that we stopped having sex after the first year. It just didn't work, Todd shrugged. What about you? I almost got married a couple of times, but, he shrugged and laughed. Like I said, that first time was really the best. Unfortunately, nothing's come close since. Todd saw how Rawlings was going toward the hospital, swinging wide past the Metrodome, then cutting back in. Why the circuitous route? This had to be twice as far as just cutting across town. Was Rawlings merely heading for the promised back door, or was there another reason? Namely, was he trying to prolong this conversation? A few blocks later, he saw it, the Hennepin County Medical Center, a massive beige and brown building, very long and low. Todd had been here a number of times as well, the best trauma center in the region, and Todd had charged in after a half-dozen crime victims. Frequently, he'd cornered a hassled doctor for a comment, too, and once he'd even been there filming when an old guy who'd been mugged went into cardiac arrest. A great segment. Quite intense. So, when did you meet Michael? Asked Rawlings as he turned into the corner and started hunting for a parking place. 4 years ago. Where? At the lake. What'd you do? Pick him up at the gay beach? No. In the bushes. There's a gay pickup place there, isn't there? If you really want to know, I was jogging and twisted my ankle in a hole. He was out for a run too, and he stopped. Asked if he could help. Love at first sight. Kind of. Todd recalled how Michael had helped him over to a bench, and then stood there quite concerned as Todd loosened his shoe. Todd wasn't all that lame, but Michael insisted on walking him the 3 or 4 blocks to his condo. Nothing had happened then, but they saw each other out running the next week, and pretty soon they were jogging regularly together. And then Todd had invited Michael up for a beer, and then... So, were you two committed right from the beginning? Asked Rawlings. Yeah. You didn't date anyone else? No. It felt that strong right from the start. You were lucky. With a grin, Rawlings pressed. Really? Totally monogamous? No fun on the side? Nope. Todd eyed Rawlings. Wondered what his situation was. What about you? Are you in a relationship? I was last year. Or was it the year before? He said with a laugh. What happened? He shrugged. Someone started screwing around, if you know what I mean. Todd waited for the rest of the story, but there was none. He saw the change in Rawlings' mood, the still eyes, the flat mouth, as if he were recalling something not at all pleasant. Todd assumed that Rawlings had been dumped. His girlfriend probably left him for another guy. Everyone had a story, but he wasn't particularly interested in this detective's. Rawlings, lost in thought, silently pulled the car into an empty spot and shut off the engine. Then climbed out. Wait a minute, said Todd, pointing to the box on the seat. Don't we need this? Right. As Rawlings scooped up the sexual assault kit, Todd climbed out. He then followed the detective toward a side entrance, one that was off the main street and hardly used. Passing through a series of long white corridors, Todd kept his head down. He wished he had a hat or some big sunglasses. When a couple of nurses looked their way, Todd scratched his head and looked at the floor. They hadn't recognized him, had they? Finally, Rawlings ushered Todd into a small room, saying, Wait in here. Todd entered the small chamber, saw a sink, an examination table, a chair. He stood there realizing he'd never felt so humble, nor so lost. He just wanted to get this over with and go home. The details of Michael's funeral loomed before him like a dark cloud. Less than a minute later, Rawlings came back in, going over to the examination table and placing the kit on it. He opened the box and withdrew a small comb and several plastic bags. Jesus Christ, thought Todd, watching all this. What was going on? Okay, explained Rawlings. This bag is for pubic and the other for the head. What? You know, hair samples. Wait a minute. My lawyer didn't say anything about this. Trust me, this is all standard. But she told me, protested Todd, I was just coming over here to have some blood drawn. Oh, that too. That's what those vials are for, said Rawlings, nodding toward the inside of the kit. But beside that, I need 50 plucked pubic hairs and 50 plucked hairs from your head. They gotta be plucked, too, so you get the follicles or whatever. No way! I could show you the search warrant. Do you want to see that again, or maybe you'd like to just go back to the jail? Todd shook his head. I can't believe this. No need to panic, bud, said Rawlings. Now, either you do it, you just put the samples in these little bags, or I can get a nurse. Would you like him to do the plucking? He held up the comb. Or would you like me? Todd shook his head, reached for the comb and bags. No thanks. You can leave. Remember, 50? Yeah. But this is ridiculous. It's not going to prove a thing. I'm just following rules. As Rawlings was shutting the door, it just popped out of Todd. I was 14. Rawlings pushed the door back a bit. What? You know, the first time. No shit. You were that young? Were you just experimenting, or was it the real thing? Well, frankly, I'm not as straight as I've been pretending. What was his name? Todd thought for a moment. Tommy. He lived down the street, and who was your best lover? My last. Meaning? Michael, of course. Yeah, mused Rawlings. There really are lovers who just pass through your life and others who change your path. Don't you think? Todd nodded. That's the kind of guy Michael was. Then, before Rawlings could ask anything else, Todd pressed the door shut. He stood still in that small white room, wondering why. Why on earth would he confess any of his sexual history to Rawlings? And more important, why the hell would Rawlings want to know? Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold. To offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides. And in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.